Swerve Strickland is a goddamn superstar. We've known it, you've known it, AEW has known it, but it's time to talk about it once again. Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Dynamite. I am your host, Tempest, alongside my lovely and wonderful co-host on this Sat-E day. It's Sat-E Nyangi. Talk to him, Sat.
Happy, lovely Saturday day, ladies and gentlemen. It is Christmas season upon us, and we're here to give you something lovely, which is a lovely review. And of course, what's causing all of this? But before we begin,
we are the young bucks of this. We are going to work from home over the Christmas season. Yeah. So let's get right into things. Before we do, of course, make sure that you're subscribed to the WrestleTalk Podcast channel. Make sure you give this a thumbs up. And if you want your thoughts on Swerve Strickland or anything else that's happened in AEW this week, may it be the news, may it be the C2, what have you, make sure you get in your thoughts to WrestleTalk.com/support, and we will read out all of the ones that are $5 and above. The Omega Chats. May he return soon. We're going to get things started. It's Swerve Strickland. Now, Swerve Strickland has been on a rough go of things, kayfabe-wise, the last little while. He obviously lost his match to Hangman Page at All Out, was brutally beaten as such, and lost his family home in the process. So he needed a big comeback. What happened? He lost to Bobby Lashley at Full Gear in a dominating fashion from Bobby Lashley. Then, what did we see last week? He's going to get interviewed, and who's going to walk up and interrupt his interview but sniveling old Max Caster?
Best wrestler alive.
The best wrestler alive. Who's going to go and make a crack about a house fire and get his ass beat for it. I praised that segment when it happened as a great showing of the character that Swerve Strickland still is. And then this week, they were going to have a match. First, we were backstage, and we saw Max Caster trying to get a pep talk from Daddy Ass and Anthony Bowens, and instead they were just like, what are you doing, man? You're going about all of this wrong. You shouldn't be having this match. What are you doing? And Anthony Bowens is like, if you're the greatest wrestler alive, go prove it. Go out there and prove it. So he walks off. He very clearly is on the outs from the Acclaimed. Thumbs up. Love to see it. And then Swerve Strickland makes his entrance, and immediately massive ovation, huge pop, great crowd all night long, one of the best they've had for TV in I do not know how long. Swerve comes out to a massive ovation. He comes down to the ring, and Max Caster comes out doing his rap. He does a rap by himself, no Acclaimed with him, no nothing. He comes down and he makes more cracks about Swerve Strickland. And Swerve Strickland just boots him off the apron at the start of this match. Puts the boots to him. Beats the piss out of him. Throws him back in the ring. He's got the look in his eyes. He continues to beat him down. They fight on the outside. Max Caster gets a brief moment of offense when he grabs Swerve and throws him into the steps. But just as they get back into the ring, Swerve Strickland gets hit with one more move, rolls through to his feet, lets out a big roar, hits a house call to knock Max Caster down, and he hits two more and then gets the pin, doesn't hook the leg. People are chanting one more time. They're all about it. They're so into it. And then he gets up on the top rope afterwards. He's about to walk away, but he returns. He gets on the top rope, and he hits the Swerve Stomp to another massive pop. He's getting a standing ovation from the people, and he looks right into the camera and says, Bobby Lashley, 2024 is nearly done, but it's not done. I'm going to take the rest of this year. It's going to be mine, and between you and I, it's not over. So they're probably going to have a match at World's End or something like that. But my takeaway from this is that god damn is this guy undeniable.
He is. But, let's talk about the other guy that was involved in the match. The polarizing Max Caster, also known as self-proclaimed best wrestler in the world.
Best wrestler alive. Greatest wrestler alive. You just corrected me, so I'll return the favor.
Best wrestler alive. Best wrestler alive!
Yeah, listen. Max Caster did his job here, which was get squashed. This was everything that I wanted this match to be. If Max Caster went 50-50 with Swerve, I would not be sitting here praising it right now. But he went out there, got his ass beat in decisive fashion. That gets a thumbs up. Role well played, Max. Perhaps that can be his role going forward.
Really? So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let's talk about Max Caster for a second, which is not Tempest's favorite subject matter. He's like, Sat, why do you always go to that level? It's kind of like, why do you always go left? Stay on the right. Let me go on the left for a second, okay? The Acclaimed, they're slowly breaking up. That seems to be the growing storyline, all right? Daddy Ass, maybe go to be a coach. Anthony Bowens can go. When it comes to the two guys, Caster and Bowens fits more of what AEW is about in terms of wrestling. Max Caster is more of a sports entertainer, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he'll suit better in the WWE because I don't see him getting a similar kind of love in AEW because he's not the best wrestler alive. He is a moderately, sometimes capable sports entertainer. And I think he does the best wrestler alive thing as a jab, as a poke, or maybe he does believe he's the best wrestler alive. I don't know. Either one or all, it's the same thing. So what is next for the Acclaimed? Are they going to do a breakup angle?
I sure hope so, because they started one. They started one earlier on in the show, or in the year, rather, at Full Gear, and then they didn't follow up on that at the show, which is bizarre. I don't know what the deal with that was, but here we are. And that appears to be where we're trending.
It is where we're trending, but the only issue I have is a bloated roster. So if they do break up, I don't know what the upside is for both guys. Bowens, he's got a lot of goodwill. People like him, and they're gonna will it to happen. I guess he might have that baby, underdog baby face kind of storyline going on. But Max Caster, like you said, is he gonna be like a jobber to the stars, or will he get a great run out of it? But we don't know. I don't know what a future looks like for both guys as singles. There's a reason why they were put together in the first place. They are like the modern day New Age Outlaws, and one guy's a work rate, the other one's a microphone guy. So I don't know if they will be better apart than they are together. The only issue for me with the group was Daddy Ass not knowing when to leave. That's when for me the group went downhill, because they can both be heels. That could be the end of the story. But I know because of Max Caster's polarizing real life social media presence, people want Bowens to get away from it because they don't want him to be sunken into that same kind of caca.
Indeed. Now,
yes, sir,
to the positive subject here.
Yes.
This has been a divisive week for AEW fans. People have had real crash out moments across social media and everything. And I was fully prepared to come on here and crash out as well. Unfortunately for me, the show was good. So I don't feel it appropriate for this week to talk about like the problems with AEW and everything. Because I would much rather look at this show, because I thought this episode of Dynamite was very good. It helped a lot by a very strong crowd. However, one thing that I do want to focus on here,
yes, sir,
is Swerve Strickland. There are a few guys on this show who continually are the most over, most popular, biggest stars on the show. No matter what segment they're in, they're the ones that are going to get the biggest pops or the most boos or the biggest reactions one way or the other. And they are Hangman Page, Will Ospreay, and Swerve Strickland. That's your nucleus for your company. And listen, I know we all have loads of great memories about Bryan Danielson winning the title at All In.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. It is one of the greatest nights I've ever had in pro wrestling. I will never forget it. However, we have strayed too far from the path of God. That has been those three guys as your centerpiece of this promotion. I'm sure we will get there. We will get back to it in 2025. Will Ospreay, Hangman Page, and Swerve Strickland are so far above just about anyone else in this promotion right now. And you see it through the reactions that they're getting in matches like this. Swerve Strickland went out there and just bodied Max Caster. They set it up last week, but this wasn't a long-running deal. This wasn't the culmination of some long story. This wasn't a setup for something that people have been waiting a long time to see. This was just him going out there and being the best. Just being the biggest star, because he is. When he let out that big primal scream, I was like, hell yeah, dude, you are that guy. And he's the guy that I want to see in the main events of this show.
There you go. That is a state of address.
Pardon me.
To AEW to let them know these are the wrestlers we want to see you guys feature more But I feel like this show did do a great job of letting us know what the future of AEW may, hold.
And it damn sure better hold more Swerve Strickland. I can't imagine it not, because, I mean, they all saw this reaction as well. This was something special. This just warmed my heart. This made me feel so good watching, because I love Swerve Strickland. Let's get into some of your Ultra Chats now, because we have the rest of this show to get through with the C2 and all of the other good stuff that was on here. Cameron P1 has said, first time I saw Shane Strickland was when I bought the MLW one-shot show back in 2016, I think, where he faces Ricochet in the main event, and to see his growth and insane popularity, I feel so happy to watch it in real time. Hear, hear. I mean, when did I first see Shane Strickland? It was on some World Wrestling Network show, like before he was in WWE. He had the short hair. Yeah. I saw him on a TV doc series called The Wrestlers.
Same.
Where he's in the CZW like Cage of Death match or whatever. And they're asking him, why would you do such a thing? Won't it damage your career? He's like, nah, bro, it's cool. I can do anything. I am that guy. Watch me go out. I want to do this. I can do this. And people will look at me like that. And now here he is, a star. Love it. Love him. Love him. Kuzu tipped $5. No message. If you did send a message and it didn't come through, let the mods know. But otherwise, thank you very much for the donation. And Cameron P1 again says, howdy, gents. Another really good Dynamite in the books. C2 just makes everything greater, doesn't it? I'm excited to see where this Top Flight, Rush, and Andrade is going to go. Imagine that. Andrade comes back. I'm actually really into this story. Bandito, let's go. Indeed. Lots of points hit on there that we will all get to.
I got Kuzu's tip right here. Kuzu tipped $5. He says, Swerve is so him, it hurts. And it pains me that he's no longer positioned as the top guy after the summer, when he very much should be. Him, Ospreay, and Hangman should be at the forefront of this promotion, but instead they're meandering and it sucks.
Yeah. Basically taking everything that I've just said. Absolutely. We're very much on the same page, Kuzu.
Just to quickly piggyback of Kuzu's point, do you feel like they should stop rotating people at the top, or they should have like a solid base, or like, this is the guy? Because it went from TK had this list of people he wanted to be world champions, so he spent years building to that. It's kind of like, these are the names, but build to them being champion. And after that, it's been a free fall in terms of who becomes world champion. But do you feel like he should have set stars? Because that's the case in WWE, where they're like, Cody is the man, and then you got other rotating wrestlers. I think if you have one guy being the guy, and then everyone else is rotating in terms of being number 2 or number 3 or the top heel, is that the way they should go? Is that what you think they should be doing in AEW?
It's difficult to boil it down to one specific thing that they should be doing. But I will say, like, what has drawn most historically in this company, what has captured people's imaginations the most, has been interpersonal storylines. Mm-hmm. That is not exclusive to AEW. That is the case across all of pro wrestling. Look at everything that's going on in WWE right now. Allow me to praise them for a little bit. Everything that's going on with the Bloodline and what we saw on Raw, and the amount of threads that you see just based off of every character's feelings, that holds so much weight, so much significance, and it means that so many different people can all be interwoven into the same story. And that is a way to make this story have multiple characters, multiple top stars, if you want to look at them that way. And if the title ends up back involved, multiple different challengers, each with a convincing and interesting motivation for challenging for the top title. Now, flip over to AEW, and there has been a real lack of consistent character work atop the card since Swerve lost the title. Swerve and Hangman is everyone's favorite AEW story over like the last year and a bit. Why? Because they're clearly defined characters and their storytelling makes a lot of sense and it's incredibly compelling. And I think we're missing out on that at the top of the card right now. You'll see interesting matches and they are telling a story, with the Death Riders and everything. But a lot of what the Death Riders have got going on right now it's easy to poke holes in a lot of it when we see what else is happening in AEW. If the Iron Savages go out on Collision, why are the Death Riders not immediately jumping out there and beating them half to death? For example.
Yeah.
But to answer your question in a very long-winded manner, you need to have those kind of interpersonal relationships and stories to make these things really feel like that's the restoring the feeling thing, you know? It's not just about this, that, the other thing. It's about the characters that people latched onto in the early days of AEW through those first few years, whether it's Punk and MJF, whether it's Hangman and Omega, whether it be a million different examples, you know? We need some more of those type of things. And we're getting it in pieces on this show. I think the Don Callis family and Will Ospreay story has been by far the best example of that as of late. But we then need to start trying to work a lot of that sort of thing back into the main event title program, because that needs to be the sole focus of the show. Hangman Page is a very interesting character. He's the most compelling character in AEW, and he's now working his way into that top spot. It would probably help a little bit if I thought he had a chance of winning this title, which he may do, but at this point, I don't see him walking out of World's End as world champion. But, you know, he is a guy where it's very easy to write character-driven stories around. I don't think we've seen that as much with the rest of the main event scene the latter half of this year. And as a result, the rotating guys in type thing, it's tricky, isn't it? Because like you can go a couple of different ways with that kind of booking philosophy where, you know, Roman holds the WWE Championship for 4 years, right? And everyone kind of has to play second fiddle, and you'll get people like a Kevin Owens will kind of come back in for a little while and disappear, and Sami Zayn comes back in a little while. Brock Lesnar came back in for a little while. All these different things. People kind of come in and out and have to play second fiddle to the guy who is deemed the guy. I think it's good to have a top star, like a top babyface, you know, or a top heel, I suppose. But, again, taking examples from all over the shop right now, you look back to like the Attitude Era when you had like Brett and you had Shawn and everything, and people asked Vince, why are you giving this Steve Austin guy so much? You've got your top stars. And he's like, yeah, but I could have another one. This is back when he had a bit more of a mind still in his stupid head. But getting those guys, it's great what they did with Swerve Strickland last year, is they get another guy and bring him up to that level.
Bingo.
You know, Swerve, and they're kind of doing that now with Kyle Fletcher, you know, with the Will Ospreay thing as well, but that's kind of still an unproven ground going all over the shop here. But
that's Society Yang special. Please speak your piece.
You know, but it's an interesting topic because you do look at it, and I do think the main event scene is a little uninspired right now, but you have the great characters there. And personally, if I was, you know, if I was booking it, I would probably be looking at what's the easiest way to get those guys back on top and tell a long-term enough story that you can in a satisfying way, go from an Ospreay to a Swerve to a Hangman, maybe with a Darby or something thrown in there. You need to be able to tell the stories that warrant any of the actual like real top guys having the title, you know? And I think they very much have tried to do that with the Death Riders thing, but it's been a little while, and I don't think it's landing with the audience quite as well as a really personal story would.
Because the lack of consistency has been an issue with the Death Rider storyline. Because how can you start off with attempted murder and not supersede that? I think that's what it is. They started off with it as a 10, and I think when you start off something as a 10, you have no choice but to go back to a 9 or a 7 or a 6, which is seen as a disappointment compared to how strong things started. You have to escalate it because people see like the blueprint for the group is NWO or Nexus for certain ages. It's like you have to keep escalating the stakes because in the beginning, they kind of established these are the babyface we're investing, the young guys. Like, why is Daniel Garcia in the part of the storyline anymore? There's certain people missing from this because then you get people say, oh, they're mid-carders. But like, how? That's like saying, oh, why is Hangman Page entertaining Swerve Strickland? He can't even beat Darby Allin. That was the thing last year. No, if you make a compelling case, like a great storyline, then for a great match, you can easily elevate someone. That's what happened with Kyle Fletcher. Great storyline with Ospreay, then backed up in the ring, and I you look at him differently. You actually see, oh man, he is 6'4". Has his thighs grown since I last seen him? You know what I'm saying? It can happen. They got the ingredients there for the Death Rider storyline. I haven't completely written it off because we follow it. I have to enjoy what I'm watching. I can't go in there with a negative mindset of like, oh, it's gonna suck. No, I'm gonna keep hope until the storyline ends. It's kind of like me judging the story as it's happening. I'm gonna get to the ending, and then in retrospect, me and Tempest will sit here and we'll talk about it, hopefully in a positive manner.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, let's get into the rest of our AEW Dynamite review here.
My phone's there. Let me go get my notes.
Okay, he's running off to go and get his notes. We open this with a great little highlight package going through the first week of the Continental Classic matches, setting up the matches that we will have on this show, which opened us up for Kyle Fletcher versus Shelton Benjamin. Now, this is a double heel match, but Shelton Benjamin is so cool alongside the rest of the Hurt Business that he could go out there and play the de facto role of the babyface, whereas Kyle Fletcher was getting Ospreay's better chance thrown at him by this very hot crowd. I'm going to keep saying that this crowd was very hot because it was so refreshing to have such a crowd that was awake and lively and wanting to be into everything. Good crowd. More of this. Go back to this crowd until they die. Oh my God, I can't say enough good about them. So, this match, again, was very fun. You know, early on, they were kind of like feeling each other out a little bit because they're both bad guys. You know, they both have that like aggressive sort of style. It was really Shelton Benjamin's like power and throwing Kyle Fletcher around compared to Kyle Fletcher's like aggression and all of that. This then led to bits on the outside where Don Callis kind of stood there, or you sat there, and Shelton Benjamin distracted himself a little bit with him sat there, and it led to Kyle Fletcher knocking him down and then getting a bit of the heat. This is where a lot of the chants started coming in for Ospreay, you know, and people were really getting on him, and Kyle Fletcher was doing a great job covering his ears and be like, "You fans, boo." So they get in there, and he gets, you know, Kyle Fletcher gets the heat for a little while. Shelton Benjamin manages to fire up, and he starts hitting throws and suplexes. He hits 2 German suplexes, and then they start chanting, "One more time, one more time." So he goes, and this may have been the plan, but it felt like he called an audible, went over there, and in a bit of call and response, picked him up and hit a 3rd German suplex. Very solid little run here, but immediately after that, Kyle Fletcher hits a schoolboy on Shelton and grabs the ropes for the leverage to get the win. Kyle Fletcher gets another 3 points here. Shelton drops his first match in the tournament. This was your opener. What did you think?
Well, I felt like it was an athletic host contest. That's why I put it down. You got 2 guys that could go toe-to-toe with some of the fastest wrestling in AEW, and 2 guys who can go toe-to-toe with some of the horses in AEW. It was a great, I think it's the first time wrestling together. I felt like they had good chemistry in the ring, and it was also a good indication that in defeat, Shelton Benjamin was still protected, because it's not like Kyle Fletcher got a clean win. And also, Kyle Fletcher looks like a star when he comes out, looks like a mountain of a man, and this match also showed that he is a star. And I also feel like they're showing people that, look, we're heavily invested in this Kyle Fletcher project. But as an Aussie Open fan, it is, you know what, we had a conversation in the office about which way they can take Kyle Fletcher's career, but you know that we've been educated that a wrestler can't stay in a tag team and be a solo guy. It's either one or the other. You can't be both.
It's not true. Look at Jay Briscoe.
Bingo. That is probably the lone example, because New Day are a trio, but in terms of a tag team, that's a lone example of a guy being a tag team guy but still had to be a singles guy. Kyle Fletcher, the way he shed his Aussie Open persona and look and everything, it's quite hard to say, man, I want to see him stuck in a tag team again, because it seems like if they don't stop this push, he can easily become TNT champion. He could be the one to dethrone Daniel Garcia if you want. But at the same time, what do you do with Mark Davis, who seems to be, you know, genetied at the moment? When I see him do well, I'm happy. But at the same time, I'm like, Aussie Open, I miss you guys.
I think there are options that you can do. I would, at some point, put Aussie Open like back together while still having Kyle Fletcher be the singles guy and having a run, but have Mark Davis be aligned with him, because I think it's better than what we got from him as a babyface. No fault to him, but he's just, you know, he's not over as that level because he's not been around. So
that's awkward too. That's the whole reason why Kyle Fletcher got over, because he's been around. In the beginning, you're just the tag guy. We don't really know. You're curtains. You're Aussie hair or Aussie curtain. But now he is not Aussie. He's the proto star. He has a name.
He does. Next up, Hook came down to the ring, and he accepted Nick Wayne's challenge for a match at Hammerstein Ballroom. Very fitting with Taz and, that whole connection and all that. Very nice. Then he called out Nick Wayne, but got jumped by all of the members of the Patriarchy, and one thing led to another after this beatdown. They hit a concerto on Hook's hand and left him laying.
Okay, usually I'm known for being the optimistic guy that looks, for something good.
You?
I don't care for the storyline.
No.
Why is a commentator getting a storyline for being written off? Taz went for knee surgery or wherever it is. They should have just kept quiet or say Taz is all. You know what? Just be honest about it. I just don't understand why they made this. Oh, because Hook doesn't have someone to talk for him. Or I don't know. This storyline is a meal out of nothing. I'm getting a meal out of scraps. And you got someone like Hook, and you're like, yeah, you kind of associate with Christian Cage. I'm not looking at you in a good light, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's like the stink of the Jericho feud is still with him, because I should be happy that he's feuding with Christian Cage. But then at the same time, the patriarchy is not the patriarchy that I fell in love with, because funny enough, there is no kill switch. Yeah. That's the thing. Look, the group has lost its luster, and they look like a bunch of geeks and Christian, which is not a good thing to have. So when I see these grouped together, it's almost gonna go away. Heat, no offense, because I love Christian Cage, but the last few months hasn't been great storytelling for the guy.
Yeah, it's been hit and miss, and get well soon, Killswitch. By all means, we want to see you living happily and healthily, and hopefully at one point coming back to pro wrestling. But I agree, this was a deal where Hook's music hit, and I went, oh yeah, this is going on. Because Christian, last week was kind of pointed in the direction of the world title feud, and I'm like, okay, there are feelings to be had about that, but at the very least, it's important people doing important things. This was like, oh yeah, I forgot that this whole sort of thing was going on. Like, Christian's attention is also being pointed over this way. I didn't quite get that. I'm not the biggest fan of what Hook has been doing for most of this year. I think his match with Samoa Joe
got a highlight.
People got really high on that, as they should. It was great, but he's been coasting off of that for the whole year.
One-dimensional. But I digress.
We digress. Backstage, Mercedes Moné was asked about Camille, and she said, I never want to hear that name ever, ever, ever again.
Wow.
And she called a bit of a shot against Anna Jay, which was followed up on later. Then they cut to, also backstage, MVP grilling Shelton Benjamin for taking this loss against Kyle Fletcher, saying, what do we do? We hurt people. What do we do? We hurt people. Why didn't you hurt that man? That's not good enough, Shelton. And he walks off. And Bobby's like, come on, man. It's not good enough. And so a stagehand walks by, and Shelton pushes him into the garage door. And some security come by, and they start to try and break it up. And Bobby Lashley beats the piss out of them, too. I really liked this, because this did not feel to me like, oh, wow, they're teasing the breakup of the Hurt Business too soon. Nothing like that. This was just, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than that.
Yes, this wasn't Ludwig Kaiser getting chopped by Gunther for some weird reason week in, week out. This was like to remind people, no. They have a mission statement, and if they fail, they have to be reminded that there are repercussions and that they have to hurt people even harder. It's kind of like, for not hurting that person, you need to hurt 2 people in a really sadistic way. It's kind of like, if you're not hurting that person, you hurt 4 people or 5 people until I'm satisfied with your progression. No, it was good, man. And then each week, the case of them staying heel it gets harder and harder, but please do not change. Because I don't want them to start kissing us and being happy to be there, or we're going to fight for AEW. No. They hurt people. They should continue hurting people. They're just cool heels, man.
They're just cool heels.
Yeah.
So then we had the Dynamite Diamond Dozen Battle Royal. Now, this was something, because last week, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly announced their entry into this match because the final 2 in this Battle Royal would have a singles match. The winner of that singles match would face MJF, as has been the case time and time again. This, though, this was interesting. As a Battle Royal, it was fine. It was laid out perfectly, acceptably. There were some spots. Some of them were fun. There was some drama kind of throughout. But generally speaking, there were two people who could be the final two in this match. And sure enough, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly were the two. I'll go through for the sake of the eliminations. But first up, Evil Uno tries to do Adam Cole's taunt. The Evil Uno Bebe and quickly gets eliminated for it. Leo Rush and Action Andretti eliminated Darius and Dante Martin. So the top flight greater faction appears to be splintering off, and we might have a bit of a feud there. Maybe a tag match for Final Battle.
Custody for Layla.
Custody for Layla ladder match, perhaps. That then turned into Mark Davis getting thrown out by Brian Cage and Lance Archer. Again, not a particularly special showing from him, unfortunately. Kyle O'Reilly and Rocky Romero teamed up to eliminate Rush and Andretti, and then it was just a few more left in there. Rocky Romero was thrown out, then the Butcher, and then it was Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, Brian Cage, and Lance Archer, and simultaneously, Cage and Archer ended up on the apron on opposite sides of the ring, and Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly knocked both of them off, so they kind of they both win this weird Battle Royal match, and they say, okay, you and me, next week, and then Kyle leaves in a huff. Don't like this storyline. This was a fine enough segment of wrestling TV, but I don't particularly care about it.
I thought Mark Davis did okay before he got eliminated. To be
honest,
was fine. Yeah, he's fine.
I just don't care that much.
Yeah, again, he suffers from not being around long enough, and now they just know him as a tag team guy. They don't know who he is as a person. We're not asking to do a video package of him being in Australia. This is me. This is how I grew up. This is my family. No, none of that. Let him have matches and beat people up. He got over in the group of being the host of the group. Let's see more of that. I dislike. I don't hate.
Hate's a strong word.
Such a strong word it is. It doesn't deserve to be hated. I dislike the storyline because it doesn't make any sense.
I hate this storyline.
Kyle O'Reilly doesn't make any sense. He doesn't make sense. You're a conglomerate. Go for conglomerate business, which is Death Riders. Why are you sticking your nose into business of a group that you didn't want to be a part of when you first came back? And he has these gentle promos with Adam Cole. Then after they shoulder barges him, I'm so confused. You don't keep the same energy on the microphone. So that's why I don't get why he's involved. I want Adam Cole to win for I'm into synergy. I am into symbolism. I am into the fact that World's End, Adam Cole was responsible for MJF losing the title. So for me, it's very symbolic for Adam Cole to finally get the match against MJF at World's End. Not Kyle O'Reilly versus MJF. No, Kyle O'Reilly to stick his nose out of the business.
I agree.
Unless we're going for some weird swerve, bro. We're going to have members of the Kingdom, part of Max's group.
Not
and then you got
Not having it.
Then you got Brody Strong and Riley and Adam in a weird 6-man tag feud. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is MJF not being around hurt this. The irony of Adam Cole not being around hurt the feud. Now MJF not being around hurt the feud as well. Their absences kind of comes to the point where what's the point if you both can't be invested in it? Even though there's a reason why MJF is not there and Adam Cole had his ankle explode, but them not being in the ring at the same time or doing a promo or continuing the storyline has really hurt this. I don't care for the diamond ring. It should have died after the first one. I don't get it. Okay, it's you win a diamond ring, then what? I don't know. And I'm tired of MJF always winning. It's too predictable. I want Adam Cole to get his victory because he needs it, and then let's be gone with it. I'm tired of this feud, but I'm happy they're ending this feud. I was one of those people, don't drop the feud. Reach a natural conclusion because that was a big heel turn. No matter how much you want to pretend it wasn't a big one, it was one of the hottest storylines in 2023. It was destined to be capped off really well, but unfortunate circumstances prevented it from reaching its full potential. Finish it. Finish the story.
Yeah, I'm about done with it all, honestly. And that's fine. I hope it is done. I hope by the time I come back after the new year, I never need to talk about it ever again.
Or just put the Butcher and Blade with MJF. I don't know. It gave him something to do. I don't know. He needs a group. That will differentiate his heel run right now compared to his last one. One he had it with Wardlow. Now he's got a group. Yeah, he had Pinnacle, but then that wasn't really a thing. That was like a 4 horseman cosplay.
Don't need any of it. Anyway, we had another brilliant Julia Hart vignette where there's a clock ticking down the hours on Jamie Hayter, and it's all very stylistic and very good. Then we had the Max Caster backstage video or backstage interview deal, and then the Swerve match that we have already spoken about. Then we had MJF in a bar talking about how all of this is Adam Cole's fault. And he's talking about how, listen, you can say that you turned on me because you knew that I was going to turn on you before that, but you have no proof of that. Everything that's happened here has been your fault. What happened to Roddy at Full Gear, that is your fault. Everything that's happened otherwise has been your fault. He says, Mox getting the championship has been a long run of things happening that starts with the ripple effect of you injuring me and costing me the title.
Actually true, you know.
That might be a bit more of a stretch, but otherwise, yeah, bro, talk that talk. Adam Cole, you're the reason this is all happening. Why are you the babyface in this feud? It's because while you were gone, MJF turned heel again. And apparently we still need to do this stupid match. So I guess we're going to do it. Yeah. I wish that we weren't doing it, but
he's a
jaundice, all right, I guess.
Jaundice infested villain.
It was uncalled for, this was. But yeah, this was a good backstage promo from Max. You know, he's good at what he does. He's good at talking. I hope they wrap filming on Happy Gilmore 2 soon so we can get some of this like in person, because we need that. We need that personal bit. Mm-hmm. All the stuff I was talking about at the beginning, the characters that you can get invested in, Max, when he's on and when he's going to that place, is one of the best examples of that in AEW.
Agreed.
But we've only really seen that like once this year, and it's because he's been gone for most of it. Hopefully we get him back and see it a bit more before the end of the year. Then we had another interesting match, which was Pac versus Jay White. Now this was the follow-up to the attack that we had last week. And there were some really interesting bits in this match. Early on, Jay White kind of took much of the early goings. He had the advantage. But then, behind the referee's back, Wheeler Yuta pulled Jay White off of the ring, you know, smacks his head on the ring apron, and then Pac goes to work. He's got the heat. This continues throughout. Jay White managed to get a bit of a hope spot with a DDT that Pac sold like death. He DDT'd himself, managed to flip over and be stuck like in a full bridge. He's a godly seller.
Yeah, great wrestler.
He is unbelievable, this Pac is. But that only was a brief hope spot. Jay White tried to hit the Blade Runner, but the motion of the Blade Runner allowed Pac to lock in the Brutalizer, and people really came up for that. But Jay White fell into the ropes to break the hold, and they separated. Jay White went to the outside. Wheeler Yuta hit the Psycho knee on the floor and sent Jay White back in. So Jay White really on the back foot, but like a drop of a hat, he pops up and hits the Blade Runner for the win. I love how protected the Blade Runner has become. As like, you wouldn't expect that move to be like and he hits the Blade Runner out of nowhere.
I know, right?
It's a lot more convoluted than an RKO or a super kick or something like that. But he's managed to just like, he can pull it out of absolutely anywhere as a counter to whatever.
He can.
And shout out to Jay White, you know, because this was a really fun little match. But then the more interesting bits happened just afterwards, because this happened, and Jay White immediately then hits another Blade Runner on Wheeler, so I'm sure he'll get a spanking backstage or something. And then Marina Shafir comes down to the ring, and they're kind of locking eyes and everything after last week. Then Jon Moxley attacks Jay White from behind, and they're all putting the boots to him or whatever, and Hangman Page's music hits. He comes out, stands on the... I call it the stage. There's no elevation to it, but he comes through the tunnel and he stands at the top and he's locking eyes with Jon Moxley and they're looking like they might go. And then it seems like one of the camera people or one of the techs or whatever just like comes into the way of the shot. And the guy's like, bro, get out of the way. What are you doing? But the camera tech then grabs the cord of the camera and wraps it around Jon Moxley's throat. He starts choking him out. Take the hood off. It's Orange Cassidy. And everyone pops really big for that. This is really the first time properly we've seen the Death Riders like fully on the back foot. This was their beatdown week. So as they go into the ring and everyone's putting the boots to everybody, you've got Hangman, Jay White, and Orange Cassidy all triple teaming Jon Moxley. You have the Blade Runner from Jay. You have the Orange Punch from Orange Cassidy. And then you have the Buckshot Lariat from Hangman Page. And those three stand tall as all of the Death Riders are like scampering away up the ramp, up the aisleway, as Christian Cage then stands at the top with his contract, looking at it going, hey. And I had a conversation with Luke because the rumored main event of World's End was going to be the four-way with Jay White, Hangman, Moxley, and Christian Cage. And we saw this and went, maybe Orange Cassidy's going to be in that. Christian, of course, still looming and everything, but I would, as much as I love Christian Cage, having another babyface in there that people can really get behind, I think would probably do well for that four-way if we are to get it. So if Orange Cassidy is in that match, I wouldn't be disappointed. But it was nice to have a little bit of babyface fire as opposed to just week-to-week beatdowns and never getting the upper hands on the heel. And you got to do that to establish this whole story and everything, but this felt like it accomplished a lot this week.
On the Christian front, he can easily face Hook at World's End
and
then either tease or cash in the contract or whatever he wants to do. To go back to the match that you mentioned earlier, Pac was punking out Wheeler Yuta, continuing the story elements of Yuta not 100% accepted within the group, which is, it is what it is. But Jay White, let's talk about Jay White. No one wrestles like Jay White, and I'm saying that as a positive. Sometimes people think speed equals good in wrestling. No. This guy is deliberate. He takes his time, but not like a technical wrestler. No, he's a keen observer and he exploits your weaknesses.
He's a defensive wrestler.
Great counter wrestler. And because a lot of people, because they think, he doesn't do flashy moves. He's not, it's weird. He's kind of like Christians. They got Christian Cage. Great fundamentals in the ring. So it means great psychology and that every move matters. Some people get tired. It's kind of like watching an art film. You're like, oh man, no one's getting stabbed within 10 minutes. No, it may take to half an hour until someone gets stabbed or whatever it is. He sets a deliberate pace in a match and is refreshing and is different because you don't want him to wrestle like Buddy Murphy because Buddy Murphy wrestled like Buddy Murphy and some people think Buddy Murphy caped Kenny Omega, you know what I'm saying? So Jay White, when he wrestles, I appreciate because he's very much reminds me of Jake the Snake Roberts, just very much on the psychology aspect. And like you said, great counter defensive wrestler because there's not a lot of people that wrestles like him. Again, the Blade Runner out of nowhere. Woo! Because especially when Wheeler trying to attack him and he got him with the Blade Runner, I was like, yeah, we're onto something here. There's been a lot of online discourse about Jay White's validity of being in the main events. Listen, if we can get rid and scrub our minds of the feud with MJF, I'll be happy. Because before that, he was doing really well in AEW. And right now, you can tell they're all in with him because he hasn't really lost since his comeback.
Amen. Jamie Hayter was backstage and said that she would find Julia Hart and she would beat her, seeing as Julia Hart just wants to talk and not come to her.
This is big, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed this. Jamie Hayter never really talks. I don't know if you noticed this. Every time Jamie Hayter talks, she either has Renee or someone talking with her. This, for me, was the first time, even when she was champion, I noticed this a lot. They never used to really let her talk. She's never done an in-ring promo by herself ever. Never seen it. So this, for me, was the first time I finally got her in her motivation of what's going on. Her coming back. She wants to be champion. What's her problem with, with Julia? Like how she feels about it. This is the first time seeing it. It wasn't Renee saying, "Oh, what do you think?" It's actually her cutting the promo. It's the most I've seen her talk probably ever.
It's very
interesting. In AEW. I don't know if people noticed this. It's the most I've ever seen her talk in AEW.
Then we had Chris Jericho telling people to buy tickets to all the show. He said he would reveal his final battle opponent soon. Turns out it's going to be Matt Cardona. That's a ROH final battle match, I suppose. Jericho and Zack Ryder.
Or a WWE Superstar match in 2009.
Yeah, genuinely. Anyway, shouts out to him. I'll skip it, honestly. We got a very goofy vignette of Cowboys and a bounty hunter and all that, putting a sign up on the wall of a saloon saying that AEW's most wanted, the outlaw, Bandito, is coming back.
Oh, yeah, about time.
This is tremendous news. He's been gone for a long time. He had a wrist injury, I think, and it just wasn't healing right or something. But Bandito's excellent. I wish he could have come back a little sooner and been part of the C2, but Bandito is going to be one to watch in 2025. Very excited. Then we had Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford, and the crowd was less into this because there wasn't as much heat for it, but they were still willing to give these girls a chance.
I love their history being highlighted, by the way, because it's easy to forget that they've got history and they played a part in the foundation of AEW. And I quickly want to shout out Penelope Ford because she's been consistently well in the ring since she's come back. But it's a shame that in the pecking order of things, she can't catch a break in terms of propelling herself in the ladder. This is someone that was there during the infancy of AEW and she couldn't even get up during that time. So I don't know what they do. Maybe turn her babyface because she's been heel for a while, or give her a makeover in presentation. She's someone with the right character and the right motivations and a connection with the crowd. She can become something.
Yeah, could well do. They got their wires crossed a little bit on like Irish whip reversals. There were a few of those that just didn't come out right early on, but they managed to get things back on track by the time we got to the end, as Penelope Ford missed a moonsault but managed to lock in the Muda lock, and Anna Jay reached the ropes, got up and hit the gory bomb for the win. So a big win for Anna Jay here on Dynamite. And then Mercedes Moné came out after the match, said that Anna Jay would not be getting a shot at her title. Maybe she could get one in 10 years after she's actually done something in the business, at which point Anna Jay grabbed the mic, said, "You mean like this?" and slapped her. And Mercedes then looked like she was going to fight, but then rolled out of the ring and left. And they announced they would be having their match in 2 weeks' time. So I'm sure it'll be a good little TV match. Backstage, Renee tried to do a sit-down interview with Mariah May, and initially Renee was just going to be like, "I'm not going to do this," because Mariah May was just giving her attitude and all this, and Renee's better than that. You treat Renee with respect, you heels. But Mariah May says that Mina Shirakawa deserves a title match, and she was willing to give it to her because you can't get that far just by shaking your boobies around. And I disagree. Look at these things. Look at them. Look at them. Give them the world. Mina Shirakawa was like seen in the background of one of the shots and then comes back around with a champagne bottle in hand, and Renee runs for cover and she stops and she hands it to Mariah May and she's like, "Do it to my face then."
Ooh, I love that.
Make me work. Because Mariah May was saying that she's going to make all of the members of the AEW women's division work for it. So they'll have their match next week. I expect it to be very good. Then it was time for our main event as Brody King took on Claudio Castagnoli. Haas fight. A proper Haas fight. This match, of course, was set up last week with the beatdown of Darby Allin and Brody King coming to his rescue, essentially. So Brody King was a big babyface in this match, literally and figuratively. Claudio has been doing uber well over the last few weeks, getting big wins time and time again. So this was a really interesting one in that I felt whoever was going to win this match would probably be seen as like the one to beat in the Gold League of the Continental Classic, right? You know, you're only going to have one big breakout monster heel, you know, to beat. And Brody is more of a babyface now, but still, the big monster you have to overcome, there's only going to be one of those. So Claudio, spoilers, won this match by the end. They had such a fun main event match here. Claudio hit a pop-up uppercut on Brody King, which I think is probably the most impressive thing that I've seen this week. Just bonkers. But they went back and forth. Brody countered Claudio's springboard reverse, like spinning uppercut deal, just punched him out of midair, which was great. Goes for all of his big moves. He went for a big dive into the dasher boards, but Claudio missed, so Brody crashed and burned. Claudio sent him over the dasher board into the crowd, and Brody jumped in by the count of 9 and looked like he was maybe going to get a little bit more momentum back, but he gets Claudio up for like a power bomb or something for the Gonzo bomb, and Claudio rakes his eyes, grabs the referee, kicks Brody in the dick, and then hits the neutralizer and gets the win. And that was the end of Dynamite. There wasn't a big angle or anything afterwards, just Claudio being put over strong in a very good match. And you and I were talking about it earlier. This is probably the biggest push that Claudio, has gotten in AEW outside of his work in Ring of Honor. And honestly, as someone who's always been a big fan of Claudio, I'm not upset about it. If they want to use this tournament to rack up some wins for the guy, set him up for a big 2025, we'll see how that goes. But it excites me. That's something that I can really get behind.
Yeah, everything, ever since the Death Rider angle, everything has started to click for Claudio. He's had the nickname of the Swiss Cyborg. He feels like a killer. He feels like he's been set on a mission to destroy people, and he's being successful in that mission. And I hope we continue to see this version of Claudio into next year, because I've been enjoying his presentation alongside his matches. Him and Shelton Benjamin, two guys known as criminally underpushed guys that should have been world champion, they're showing the case of why they should have been.
Absolutely. So, what did you think of this episode of AEW Dynamite? Make sure that you send in the last of your Omega chats to WrestleTalk.com/support, and we will read them all out before the end of this show. It is the beginning of a new month, so let me just do a quick double check. We have got podcast shoutouts to do before we get into the rest of the Omega chats. So, for everybody that is a $30 and up subscriber at WrestleTalk.com, or pardon me, Patreon.com/WrestleTalk, you get your own custom wrestling nickname read out on a show just like this. So a big shout out to The Last Main Event, Malcolm. Yeah. Shield Maiden, The Zornice. Yeah. Burley, Rob Burwell. Yeah. He ran, Aaron Hanrahan. Yeah. Let Him Cook, Alex. Yeah. Apoc Alex now. Yeah. Andrew Gifford, the Big Red Dog. Yeah. I'm afraid he's got some bad news. It's bad news, Bob the Ninja Goldfish. Yeah. Always leave the crowd wanting Brian Moore. Yeah. Chris, Hellfire Brimstone. Yeah. The Genetic Jackhammer, Chris Fielder. Yeah. And Chris, the Cypriot Sensation Patru. Yeah. Thank you again to all of our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk, but especially thank you to everybody who signs up to get your custom wrestling nickname read out here on the show. Let's get into the rest of your Omega chats and get out of here. We have got Nick Smith, who says, I have a wild theory. Commentary made sure to get over last week that Okada is still champ until the end of the tournament. Worried heel Okada could be eliminated and via a final schmoz interference finish, retain the title from a match he's not even in. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think...
Imagine
listen,
that.
I suppose anything is possible. If this final ends on a disqualification and he's not in it, I guess the title wouldn't change hands. But
kill the tournament.
It would kill the tournament, and there are enough people that can't get the C2 right in their heads anyway to make it even more complicated for them. So... I suppose you found a loophole, Nick, but not one I'm sure AEW is going to exploit. Zaref has been a member for 39 months in a row, and he says, or they say, I suppose, I don't know what your pronouns are, say, what a banger of a Dynamite episode. C2 matches constantly making me question who will come out on top. Unrelated, but where'd you get your beanie, Tempest? I don't know. I got this as a Christmas gift a couple years ago from my sister, so perhaps I will ask and get back to you.
Do you know the brand name of your beanie?
No, I sure don't. What does this say? WM Caps. WM Caps. I don't know what the WM stands for.
William Morrissey.
William Morrissey Caps. That's no cap. Space Viking says, I kind of hope, ? I kind of hope ? Is feuding with Wheeler. I don't know who that ? Is meant to be. I don't know. There's something about Mox, Hangman, and Jay feuding. I don't know if this makes sense, but it feels like grown folk-ish. Interesting. Like they're all grown men, and Wheeler Yuta is still a child.
A baby with them pube beards.
And he says, also, Cole has to win the ring turning heel, right? Max can still be bad, but Cole kind of needs to be too. I don't know. I'll be honest. I've kind of grown past fantasy booking the end of this feud. I just kind of want it to be over. If they do another heel turn in the middle of all this,
it'll kill it, man.
I'm sure people will be like, that's one step too many. So he can turn heel the month after the feud is ended, but I need this chapter to be closed before anything for the future needs to start having seeds sown. Double L, Liam Leonard has been a member for 39 months in a row, saying, I have been enjoying the Continental Classic. I always love seeing these matches that are fresh and always feel so fresh. Whirlipede Squad for life. You got it, brother. Congrats on your booking. I saw that. Of course, we talked about it, but congrats. Queen of the Spanish Mask says, so, can we talk about the DR? They really are just a better, Death Riders, just a better anarchist version of the Elite, right? Wheeler, they have their own Prime Okada in Claudio. They even have their own Jungle Boy doing Brian's moves, but gets more heat from it. That was an interesting point. Like, Jack Perry did start trying to steal the knee and all of the... Although, Jack Perry's knees and all that are supposed to be a shot at Kenny Omega, I'm pretty sure. As opposed to the Psycho knee that Wheeler has stolen from Bryan.
Sure.
You know? But
I guess so.
Either way, yes, it is very similar. The Elite story and the Death Rider story. There are differences, of course. But, yeah, they're fighting against the soul of AEW and all that, to your taste or perhaps not. Rafael Garcia has said, I'm not sure when the Blade is coming back, but on the off chance he doesn't, Mark Davis and the Butcher would be a fun tag team. Glad to see Bandito coming back. I miss Samoan Joseph, and I'm okay with the little healer Yuta. You read that right.
LOL.
Yeah, healer Yuta. Very good. I can't wait to see Bandito back. I also miss Samoa Joe. He's been gone for too long. He's off doing other work that I'm glad he has, but I'd love to see him. And Mark Davis and the Butcher. They look close enough together that they would make a fun tag team.
They look quite meaty.
Yeah. I'm with it. Nate336 says, don't get me wrong, I like Mox, but not having Swerve and Ospreay in the title picture after the year they've had makes the title feel less important to me. I feel the exact same way. I love Mox, but yeah, put the title on the hottest guys, and the hottest guys right now are Hangman, Swerve, and Ospreay. So hopefully we'll get there before too much longer. Cameron P1 says, maybe I'm giving AEW too much credit here, but I'm taking the story they're telling. Is that without Kyle, Mark is failing, and it would possibly lead him back to Kyle, and they reunite to win the tag titles in Australia. That's just what I think / hope. I think it would make a lot of sense for the tag titles to be won by a heel Aussie Open in Australia. That would make a lot of sense to me, particularly if you want to then set that up to maybe have them feud with like Ricochet and Will Ospreay as a tag team. That tag team match would go incredibly hard and have a lot of storyline behind it. So maybe that's a vision of the future from next year. And Noah Fortner says, on my quest to get back into wrestling before the Rumble, I went to the show last night and I have a question. Why is this company not over? Maybe I just had fun live and it doesn't translate to TV, but this crowd seemed to love most everything they did. Well, this crowd does not represent most of the crowds as of late in AEW, unfortunately. But to get into why AEW isn't over is a very, very, very large question that we kind of talked about off the top about, the main event scene and all of that. But basically, I think it does boil down to you need to have interpersonal storylines that people really care about. And right now, I don't think they have very many of them on the show. Whereas you look back to years past, and there were just endless interpersonal stories up and down the show. Like 2021, from the end of the year there, when you had MJF and Darby, you had Eddie Kingston and CM Punk, you had Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, you had, I'm sure there's more, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But those are 3 all-timers on the same pay-per-view. So it was really easy for the company to be hot at that point.
You're right, because if you think about it, the reason why the NWO storyline got so hot in WCW is because you had this group of people tearing apart, because WCW's been around for a while. So you had this group trying to ruin tradition, and you had a group of guys step up. So there's an interpersonal feud of guys like Sting, who was corrupted by it, and he changed who he was as a person. And then you go to WWE. What got them over was Austin versus McMahon, and the interpersonal feud between a boss and an employee. You want to be invested in something. I guess the AEW hasn't given people something to invest in, even though they have all the ingredients for stuff to invest in. It's just they haven't gone all the way with it, which has made them fall short. And also, I think it's a cycle of where one company is hot and the other is not. Although I would love it for be both company hot at the same time, but that seems to be the case. So hopefully things change.
Hopefully they do. I'd love for both companies to be hot. But that is the rest of our Omega Chats. The poll thus far on this week's episode is 79% up, 17 in the middle, and 4% down. That's pretty much right. This was a good episode of Dynamite. You should go out of your way to see the top matches. Really, really enjoyable show. And with that being said, we as a podcast will be back next week for our WWE review of Monday Night Raw, of course. And until then, next week, we will be back with our AEW Dynamite review. Thank you so much for joining us. We have been the House of the Black Mask. We will see you next week. Jam that jam.
And the house always wins.
You said it.